Welcome to the Character Sheet, comic books official home for all things tabletop and fantasy. I am Christian Hoffer. Today I am joined by producer Pete and a repeat guest to the channel, James Introcaso of MCDM. How are you doing, James?
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I am feeling good, feeling tired. We're working hard. We're working hard
You
over there, but I'm feeling really good about what we're going to do today and about Draw Steel. I think
Yeah,
last time I was here, we had not given away the name of the MCDM RPG yet, and it is called Draw Steel.
which
So
is
yes, I am excited about that.
it's a very epic sounding name. I think it fits the general theme of the RPG, which is epic combat, epic tactical combat. However, today we're not going to be talking about epic tactical combat, although kind of, sort of, in a way, just a different form, one that maybe doesn't involve swords unless things go very poorly. So one of the interesting things that Draw Steel has is, of course, you have a social encounter that basically has rules involved. Then it's basically negotiation. So first question before we dive into exactly how this works: why did you decide to build out to be frank, a tactical social role play element to your game?
Yeah, so we like to do things that support the fantasy of the stories that we're hoping you're going to tell with Draw Steel, right? Draw Steel is an explicitly heroic game, and we think that, there are lots of scenes that we can think of in different heroic films and books and comic books where you have to, as a hero, it's not just about going in there and facing a beast, right? It is about getting others to stand up and to also do what is right. And that can be a very hard thing to do because people have all sorts of different reasons for not getting involved in the fight. It may be that, they're scared because someone they love could get hurt if they get involved. It may be that they used to be involved in the fight and they watched too many things that they cared about get destroyed, right? It could be
Mhm.
that they're greedy and looking for personal gain, right? Thor making the appeal to Loki to like, help me, brother, right? That these are all different scenes that we can think about. And we wanted to create a system that supported that. It feels like a lot of times when you go in to negotiate in some D20 fantasy games, it's like we all roll dice until the person running the game gets tired and says, "Yeah, okay, you do it. They're on your side." Right?
Yeah.
And we wanted to give you the framework to make a, hey, we as the players would like to get this person to help us out. And it's going to shift the story in a major way if they do. And so, in order to do that, here are the different outcomes you could have in a negotiation. Here are the steps at which hey, it's done. Like negotiation is over now, and now we can read these different outcomes. So we wanted to put that on there. It's not there to. I mean, you can absolutely use it in place of role playing if you wanted to,
Mhm.
right? If you're not a group that role plays, but you still want to have the dramatic tension of negotiation, you can play this negotiation game if you wanted to. But it's really there to help aid role playing, right? It's there to support that role playing that you do in these scenes, and also have a framework then that says like, okay, here's how we know when it starts, here's how we know when it ends, here's how we know we can't do anything else as players, right? Like this is the final offer, take it or
Mhm.
leave it, right? And so we
Yeah.
wanted to create that so that people could have more fun with these kinds of scenes. And one of the big things, one of the big tenets, right, of this is that like negotiation really needs to be started by the player characters. They need to be the ones who say, we want something from you. Right now, it's very possible that you can have scenes where someone says, "Hi, I'm an NPC and I would like something from you," the player characters. Absolutely happens. You just don't use negotiation rules for that, right? If there's any kind of test, you might make a normal test. Similarly, like you don't use this to bribe the guard at the door to get into a party, for instance, right? If it's one of those things that could just be handled with a couple of few exchanges of dialogue or one quick roll of the dice, right? That's not a negotiation. Negotiation is we're appealing to someone who has a lot of power to help us out right now and change the course of the adventure. And that is when we're going to throw down and have this negotiation and use these rules.
Okay. Well, I mean, I had a list of questions in my head, and you answered all of them. So, first and
Boom.
foremost, wow, well done there. Way to make my job easy. So walk us through, how does the negotiation work? How what do we need to do? How does this differ than the scenario that you literally described earlier, the typical 5e scenario of, I really would like to roll to convince, and I either make a deception or persuasion check, and I keep rolling that until I'm either exceptionally hot or exceptionally not.
So essentially, we use some of that framework, right? There are still going to be tests involved. There's still going to be dice rolling involved, because rolling the dice is fun, and interpreting, reading the bones, and saying, what is the outcome of this? What does this mean, right? In this scenario, it's a big part of the fun of role playing games. Otherwise, we'd tell stories without dice, right? And so the way negotiation works is the NPC you are talking to, negotiating with, they have a couple of different negotiation stats, right? And the first one is interest, right? And that exists on a scale from 0 to 5. And that is, how interested am I in helping you, right? How
Mhm.
much do I want to help you, right? And so depending on their starting attitude towards you, they could have a very high interest, right? Like maybe you've known them before, you've done some work with them. They could start with an interest of like 3. It's pretty high.
Okay.
Or hey, you could have negotiations stop in the middle of battle. We have rules for trying to stop a battle to negotiate with the other side, right? If that happens, interest could be at like a 1, because it's like, yeah, you're negotiating because you were losing, and we all know it, and we have the upper hand here. So we're not that interested in helping you unless you can really offer us something great, right?
Mhm.
Um, so you have that interest score. Then you also have a patience score, right? And the patience is, how many different offers can we go back and forth, and how many dice rolls can we make and fail or pass before the NPC says, look, enough is enough. This is the final offer. Take it or leave it, right? And so the way it works is, right, we role play scenes every time the heroes, which is you all, make an offer to the NPC, right, which is me, the director running the game. Um, you make a test, right, and that test could increase or decrease interest, and it will almost certainly decrease patience, right? Now, a really good test might leave patience where it is, and there are ways you might be able to get more patience out of someone. And so after that happens, right, the NPC will say, like, look, and give you their current perspective on it. I can't do what you're asking me, but I could do this for you. Or, you
Mhm.
know what, I can do that for you, but you got to do this for me, right? Or, hey, you know what, I'm just going to do that for you. And then you as the heroes get to decide, well, do we want to take this deal, right? So a negotiation could be just one exchange where it's like, you're happy with the deal, we're moving on. Or it could go back and forth a lot where you're like, I really need you to consider this. Please do this for me instead, right? And it builds up to, okay, maybe we're going to do this before their patience runs out. Maybe we're going to actually get them to where we need to go, right?
Mhm.
And so that's sort of the basic tenets of it. The other thing to know is that the NPC you're negotiating with has motivations, right? And appealing to those motivations in your argument for why they should help you um, makes things a lot easier for you when you're rolling the dice, right? So, for one, the director might decide for a really nice and well role played argument, and and it appeals to a motivation, right? That it's like, well, that just works. You don't need to roll dice. That just works. We're gonna, and they make you this offer. Um, they may decide you get to roll dice, but it's easier. The target number you need to hit to get a success with them is much smaller, right? The other thing that could happen, right, is that they have motivations, and they also have things that are called pitfalls, which is like, hey, if I bring this up, right, if I try to appeal to this motivation that you have, let's say, I have greed as a motivation, right, but power is a pitfall. I want stuff. I don't want to rule the world. I just want money, right? And you try to offer me power, and I'm disgusted, I'm offended by that, right? And that means that, like, you automatically failed because you hit that pitfall. So it means that, like, going into a negotiation, it's helpful to know some things about the character that you are going to talk to, right? So those are the basics, right? Your NPC has their interests, their patience, and you've got your motivations and pitfalls as well. And researching those will help you out in a negotiation beforehand. But you can also find them out during a negotiation as you're talking by making intuition tests, right? You can try to say like, okay, I don't really know anything about this person, but maybe I'm getting a vibe off them. This might give me one of their motivations or pitfalls, that kind of thing.
Okay. So I think the best way of kind of demonstrating all this is to actually run through one of these. So let's start this scenario out.
Yes, excellent. So I have created a couple of characters for y'all today. And your characters, right, are going to be entering into a negotiation. And the plot is that you're trying to build up an army of forces, different organizations to battle Lord Saxton. And Lord Saxton is this despotic warlord who murdered the Lord of Bedegar, the country where you are, and he's declared himself the ruler of the land. So you have decided to meet with the ruler, the guild master of the local thieves guild, a woman named Zola Honeycutt, right? And this thieves guild called the Clock, right? She fought him a long time when he first rose to power, and she was unfortunately lost many of her forces, were imprisoned or publicly executed, that sort of thing. And she has not fought back against Saxton in a long time, months. It's been since the Clock dared to take any action in the face of Saxton. But she has agreed to meet with you at the Tipsy Mule, and it's sort of a known bar where members of the Clock occasionally hang out. So you got there a little early. The place is packed right now, right? It's the nighttime rush is going on as you enter this tavern. You can see that there's a barkeep who is behind the bar, a human with a big bushy beard is back there serving drinks. There's people kind of off at all the tables, shoulder to shoulder, as you are here and you enter. So I'd like to know from each of you a little bit about the characters that you're playing, if you want to introduce them for folks.
Yeah, so I am playing as a high elf talent, which if you've, obviously you know what that is, James, but I'm still going to describe it for
Please.
the audience. That's functionally a telepath.
Yes.
And so when I think of I'm trying to think of, I want to say haughty, but that I mean that can be taken more than one way. But I'll use it. Kind of a little bit arrogant, haughty, telepath. Obviously, my character's name is Jean Grey. So I have a full long hair, a head of red hair. And I'm very overly dramatic.
John Gray. Love it. Love it. Yes. And Pete, who are you playing?
I'm playing a devil troubadour named Nicola Brass. And Nicola he's a devil. He's got sort of an unusual teal tinged skin. He's wearing very flamboyant clothing as a troubadour. He looks like he's the ringmaster for a circus no one knows they've walked into yet. He has like big top hats that sort of like hide some of his like curling ram's horns. And he's just he's a pure performer at heart. So he's there. He's got a way with words and a way with performance, and that's sort of why he's been added to this little retinue.
So one thing that I want to talk about real quick to step above the table is that you two are playing classes that we have not yet really brought out to the public. And I did sort of make shorter versions of the character sheet for you, since all of the combat abilities won't be used today, right? Well, we'll see, I guess. In many ways, that's up to the two of you. But one reason I picked these two classes is not just because I like you and wanted to show off some cool stuff that these classes can do, but it's also because when we're talking about negotiations, right, a telepath and a troubadour are really good people to bring to the negotiation front. So this, this is within the wheelhouse of these two characters as well, to sit down and have a conversation. And so you have gotten here a little early. It's before Zola is supposed to be here to meet you. What do you all want to do while you wait for her to arrive?
I want to call over a waiter and demand the cleanest glass of water that they have.
So yes, you come in. You can see there's a free table. A couple people are just getting up as you're coming in that you could claim if you wanted to. And there is a waiter there who is moving all of the items. He is a polder, right, which is our version of in MCDM of a halfling. Short individual who looks up at you and he says, yes, right away, sir, right away. And takes the tray of dirty mugs and scurries out of the room. And you get a glint of recognition in the eye of this polder as he makes his way out of the room, as if he's recognized you, because in Draw Steel, the character you create is already a somewhat known hero, at least locally to the area, right? So there's a good chance that you've clocked that you've been clocked by this polder as they run out.
I turn to Nicola and I go, "They recognize me."
This is most likely. It's like, but I think Nicola is going to go over to the barkeep. And I think he wants to offer his services in this crowded. I mean, what's a tavern? What's a pub without a performance? So he'll walk over to the barkeep with the great bushy beard and introduce himself.
Oh yeah, I know you. I saw you play at the Stuck Pig last week. And he sticks out his hand and he says, Barrel Steve, nice to meet you.
So, Nicola Brass, pleasure is all mine. I've noticed in your fine establishment that with all the bustling and the people, you are missing one key element, and I am here to provide for you free of charge. It will simply do for tips. Normally, I do not believe in tip-based worker economy, but I make exception for your establishment. I offer you the services of Nicola Brass, performer extraordinaire.
And he looks at you wide-eyed. Getting this free entertainment in his bar is good. And he looks over your shoulder and says, "Oi, 3 strings!" And you can see a human. She's got a lute with 3 strings that she is standing up on a table, getting ready to play. And he says, "You're on break. We got Nicola Brass here." And he sort of points up to the table and says, "The stage is yours." And you can see that like people kind of clear a path at the commotion to this. And some of them cross their arms like, well, we'll see about this person. Yeah.
I'll walk by 3 strings. I'll pat them on the shoulder and be like, "Do not worry. We all start somewhere. We can only rise from bottom." And I'll step up to the stage because I would like to use part of my troubadour build is my Dazzler ability. I'm hoping to give a performance that will give me an edge on influence and performance checks for people who may have seen it or heard it.
That's great. So, why don't you go ahead and tell me what is the instrument that you play, and what is the song about that you play? Or is it some other kind of performance, right?
It's a little bit of both. I think it starts out, he's very much a showman. So it starts out with a little bit of storytelling, and he's not being outright subversive, but he is telling a lot of like small stories that are all kind of set before Saxton took over. They're not directly anti-Saxton, but it's like sort of remember the good old days. And while he's doing this, he begins to juggle more and more. He starts with like knives come out of like pocket sleeves, and then those are replaced by like like a pin comes out, and he's like juggling a pin. And at one point, he switches to juggling with one hand as he like unslings his lute from the back with the other hand, and he starts playing one-handed the lute, playing like more of these songs from like 3 or 4 years ago before Saxon was playing, while he's like doing sort of like sleight of hand work with his other hand, like vanishing knives in the air. He's like, all of a sudden he's like juggling like a fountain of coins in the air, and he's trying to do this while performing these songs.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So as you are doing that, John, you are seated at the table, and you can see, this is, you're probably familiar with this tactic. I would bet maybe every bar you go into, Nicola is hogging the attention.
I have watched this performance many times.
It's always
good. And as it is, the polder comes back, bringing to you a very clear glass of water, and you notice that the polder has actually put on gloves to bring you this glass, as to not smudge it with his own fingerprints, right? As he puts it in front of you, and like sort of just stays there for a second, watching you for your approval.
I slowly pick up the glass, and while not leaving eye contact with him, I take a sip.
And he just stares, right? Like he does not want to break away.
I put the glass so that I can like look through the glass to see him. And then I put it down. And then I point to Nicola, and I say, "He shall provide you with a tip."
And he says, "Oh, very kind, very kind. Not that we believe in tip-based economies here, but it is always appreciated when it comes my way." He sort of leaves, and as he does, you can see there's a table of like across from where you were staring at this individual. There's a table of some people in armor, like leather armor and arms crossed, who half of them seem to be watching you, and half of them seem to be very interested in Nicola's performance as it is going on. Nicola, can you roll me? So we're going to do our first test here.
Oh,
so roll 2d10. And then what you're going to want to do is add your presence score, which is 2 to that.
Yep.
And then if you have a skill that applies to this, which you do, you have music and performance, you can add another +2. So this is a total of +4 is going to be added to this.
It's a 17 total.
All right. So in Draw Steel, we have a little bit of a, if you're familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, we have a 3-tiered result on tests, right? There is a really good, kind of good, right? When it comes to making these tests. And in this case, right, 17 or higher is the really good place to be. Right? 12 to 16 is the middle result, and then 11 or lower is the result. So this is great news, right? You have performed and captured the hearts of everyone. People are like wrapped by your performance, right? And when you are done, there is applause. You can see 3 strings is the first to stand up and give the ovation, right? And you have just won over everybody in this pub right here.
Yep. I'll pass my hat around and go, "Oh, please, tips are welcome. Remember, tip servers, but also in future insist on a fair wage-based hourly system of recompense." Pass my top hat around for tips.
Yeah, and you can see people are getting out their purses, right? They're dropping the coins in as your top hat goes around. And you can also see that Barrel Steve is sending over a bottle of wine to the table where John is sitting, right? And that polder comes back carrying a bottle of wine and says, on the house, of course, and puts it on the table for you, and then just backs away.
And I just look at him and I say, It's on the table.
Well,
He's very
yes.
literal person. He does not understand concept of analogy, metaphor, colloquialism do not work so well.
I see. I see. And you can see then stands there looking expectantly at you, Nicola.
Oh, I was like, even though I do not believe in this, because you leave it in an inherently unfair socioeconomic structure, here is 4 silver piece for you.
Oh, thank you very much. And he gives a little bow and walks away.
And I literally like declare to no one, and I just say, he has left a tip.
That's excellent. That's excellent. So, is there anything that you want to do? It's getting close to when Zola is supposed to meet with you all.
I want to see if the acts of ingratiating ourselves by leaving the waiter a good tip, by performing, if that has impressed various people who look as if they likely are associated with Zola.
Perhaps the leather armor clad.
Yeah.
As
Sure,
Christian
sure.
slowly dies of coughing.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Walking pneumonia.
Oh, that is okay.
Yeah.
A-okay. A-okay. Yeah, you can make an intuition test. And if you have read person as a skill, you can add an extra +2 on top of your intuition score to that.
I do. So that's a +3. Okay. That's a 12 + 3, 15.
Nice. So yeah, with a 15, you can see that the people who are watching you, they've definitely they're like whispering to each other, but it doesn't seem they've relaxed a little bit, right? Like they were tense before when they were watching you, and now it's sort of like, okay, they're feeling a little bit more relaxed around you. And as you are watching them, a chair at your table. You hear the sound of a chair sliding on this wood floor, and then a woman with an eye patch sits down at the table, and she kicks her feet up on top of your table. Right, so she's like leaning back in her chair, feet up on top of your table, and she says, "Well, that was quite the performance."
Oh, we always aim to please. It's a pleasure to make your acquaintance, who I am assuming is Mrs. Zola Honeycutt. And I bow and I like tip the top hat.
And she spreads her arms wide in a gesture of like, "You were right, it's me," and gives a big smile, and says, "Yes, of course, singing songs like that in an establishment like this, so close to the throne of Bedegar, is something I wouldn't necessarily do myself because I value my neck."
Sometimes you have to be willing to make a statement, but also not. This is not an everyday occurrence for us. We just wanted to give you a little sample of who we are as people before we met.
She nods, and she reaches over to the bottle of wine and pulls that and starts to take a pull from it. Right, it's opened because they opened it back in the bar. So she pulls from it and then puts it back in the bar right in front of John, and then wipes her mouth with her sleeve, and says, "Well, you've got me here. I'm a busy lady. What is it you need?"
Here, I'll let John go first.
Oh, okay. So I just like look at the wine. I look at her, and there's like a long awkward pause, and then I just go, "Your services. We are in need of them. You mentioned that you have a neck. We would like to utilize your services to remove necks from heads." And I kind of like have like my eyes go wide as I say that, and I just stare.
She chuckles, but is also a little uncomfortable, right? And says, I think you may be confusing me with a different criminal service. We are the Thieves Guild. We don't do a lot of killing, contract killing. But we do fight when there is a cause that is winnable.
Do you not feel that abolishing tip-based services and an
Oh,
economy
no,
that
I probably no wrong cause.
oh,
We hear about army today.
I just kind of turn. It's like it's all related. It's it's like tragedy.
Tip-based economy exists before Lord Saxton is long problem inherent in the system.
I just... So we leave the tips on the table, but we are in need of crafty members who may or may not, if the need arises, separates necks from heads.
She laughs and she says, "Is there any particular neck you're thinking we could help you separate?"
And I go and I hold my fingers to my head,
Yes.
and I really hope she says mind speak. And I just very intensely concentrate, and I just say Saxton in her head.
And you see her, she gets like a very sad look. And she says, "Where were you two when we needed you? When Saxon first took over? Many, many people died. We were the only ones who stood up. We were here in the city where he took over. We tried to rise up. We thought the people would come with us, and none did. Why would I trust you to get more of my people killed?" This is all in your head. Back to you.
And I just very directly go, "I wasn't here then, and now I am."
And so she will turn to Nicola and give like get a load of this guy look, and she says, "Well, I thought this might be what this is about. I'm not even sure why I took this meeting, but I'm here.
Like, I think you
Why
took this meeting.
Should we help you?"
I think it is more a question of how we can help each other achieve a common goal. I'm going to attempt to use Ace of Hearts to form a bond with her, and I'm going to try and form that bond over the concept of vengeance.
Okay.
Say, you and I have similar background. We have had friends, family trampled on, in prison, killed by Saxton. But now, unlike when he first rose to power, which was so sudden and shocking and swift, now the people finally have started to rise up. There is a movement now. There is a way that we could finally get some of these the ledger back into the black again. If we can finally find a way to, we'll never bring back what we have lost, but find a way to inflict those losses on someone who deserve it, on someone who is repressing the people, who has hurt us so much. We finally have a way to hurt him, to make him feel what we felt, and to finally strip him of the power he's been abusing for this last nearly year.
All right. So you can go ahead and make this test. So one is you're going to have an edge on it, right? And just to put things in terms that everybody understands, edge is sort of our version of advantage. You get an extra +2. But you can, and this is important for you both to know, get a double edge on a test. And a double edge, instead of giving you a +2, gives you automatically bump up into the next tier, right?
Okay.
And that's why we cap a double edge at that, because we don't want to track more than 2 edges, right?
Gotcha.
But that's the idea. Is right now you have an edge that is going to give you an extra +2 on top of. It sounds like you are, I would say, using your presence.
Yes.
Yes, in an attempt to perhaps persuade. This would be a total of +6.
Gotcha. All right. Pull that back up. Oops. All right. 18.
Okay. And so with that, now to give people an idea of what's going on behind the scenes right now. So this was, you made an argument to try to sway her to see things to your side, right?
Mhm.
Now, vengeance is not actually one of her motivations, but it's also not a pitfall for her, right? And there are all different kinds of, there's like a list of 12 that we have in the book. Benevolence is one. There are a bunch of other ones that I need to pull up my list.
I almost went for
greed,
justice and changed my mind last minute.
freedom, justice, right? Power, greed, peace, protection, right? Revelry. You just want to party. And so, but it's also not a pitfall, which means that when you achieve this result, right, for one of these, you get their interest increases, right? But their patience decreases. Right. And that's really good for one of these tests, right? You're starting to sway her, but the clock is also ticking, as it were. All right. So and so she leans back in her chair at this and says, I can't get the clock directly involved. But you're right. We do want Saxon to be paid back for all of the pain that he has brought, not just on the clock, but the people of Bedegar, the people of this city, the people of this nation. We do have a network here in this city of underground tunnels that we would be willing to let you make use of as you perform various acts against Saxton to get away and go from place to place. But I'm sorry, I can't spare myself or anyone else to this cause. You note that she is still there, waiting and listening. She is probably still persuadable further.
Could I make an intuition roll of some kind to try to figure out, to try to figure out how I might be able to, appeal to her, in some fashion, figuring out like what exactly makes her tick.
Yeah, you can make that intuition read person
Yeah.
test again to see if you can maybe divine one of her motivations, right? Yeah.
So that would be a +2.
Yeah.
And
nice. And then whatever your intuition is normally, it might be 0. Yeah. All right.
Okay, we're rolling really high today.
Yeah, 17 right on the nose.
Yeah.
All right. So with a 17, you can see that she is particularly when she talks about the people, right? And like getting something back for the people here. That is genuine in her. She really cares about the people that she is in charge of protecting. And for her, making sure that they stay safe and protected is a big time that is of the utmost importance. She would see Bedegar fall to this tyrant before putting a lot more of her people in danger because she cares about them so much. So protection is one of her motivations, and you can definitely divine that like she wants to know her people are going to be okay.
These tunnels. What if we were to devise a plan for Saxton and his forces to be drawn and separated near these tunnels in a manner of which they could be picked off one by one and never know what hit them? What if we provided ways of drawing them out so that the subtle knife could be slipped into their purses and also their kidneys at the same time?
Hmm.
Thieving, just very poor thieving, very violent thieving.
But also,
yeah.
perhaps with us here for added protection.
What if there was a scenario that we could, basically, have the forces needed, but there would be minimal danger to those forces. A force waiting in the shadows and only striking in the shadows.
Good. All right. So I think you are definitely appealing to the idea of like, look, you can stay back, you can hang back. The protection idea. Do what you do best, right?
Yeah.
That's all we're asking. So go ahead and
Very violent.
you can. Yeah, I think this is a reason test. So not all tests, right, when you're making arguments are necessarily presence tests, right? Like some are like, hey, I'm trying to use my charisma to convince you. But some are like, look, let's talk about the reason. This is a reasonable thing for you to do, and I think it would work and you'd be protected. And so I'm going to say this is a reason test, which is why we separate skills from the characteristic here, because your skill could still apply, right? And let's see, what skills do you have that you think might apply to this situation?
It would probably be persuade, or you could even go with I guess depending on how abstract you want to be, like we could be appeal. Persuade it would be the easiest one.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not
that's going to
lying.
be
Yeah.
as a talent, you've got a reason of 2, and then you've got persuade gives you another 2. So this is going to be a +4 bonus here to this.
Okay. Let's keep the good rolls going. The 13.
13. All right. Now, normally, right, that would mean that if you hadn't appealed to a motivation that she had, right? Normally that would mean that like nothing happens to her interest, but her patience decreases, right? So the clock continues to tick. It's not a worse deal, but it's like this is the deal on the table. However, you appealed to a motivation, and that shifts everything down, basically, right? When you appeal to a motivation, it means that like, oh, okay. And so similar to what just happened with Pete, it's the same result, but at a you didn't need as high a die roll, right?
Yeah.
And so her interest is increasing again, and her patience is decreasing. Again, this is very good. This is what this is what you want to happen. And so she nods and says, that's excellent. I think that we could agree to this if you, of course, can do something for me. And she looks you both up and down and she says, there's a rival guild, one that is less of the people. And I'm hoping that you could, well, see to it that they're driven out of Bedegar by any means. Doesn't matter. They don't need to die, but we do need to get them out of here. I would need that assurance that our business practices won't also be harmed as we help you. Is that something you think you could do for me? And so essentially she's saying she's willing to help as long as you do this thing for her first, right? And it's up to you both. Like, this is a point where you could say like, yeah, we'll do that and stop negotiation. Or you could try to push for, we don't want to do that. We want to do something else, or we don't want to do anything at all. You should help us out of the goodness of your heart. right? So that is one point. That is a thing that you can do here, right? The negotiation still isn't over. She'll let you know when she's making her final offer. So she's still got a little patience left in the tank, basically.
I think if I was here on my own, I would probably keep pushing. But I think as, in this scenario, representatives of a larger movement, I think Nikolai is probably pretty happy with that deal. And he also doesn't really need a secondary thieves guild running around with no ties to the... So I think this... And I look over at John and kind of like double check that he's okay with it. And I go, this is eminently acceptable. Like this makes sense. This is beneficial both ways. That is the only way to have proper alliance, proper negotiation. We agree with this completely.
I nod and I just say, every last one of them shall die, and then you can steal from their corpses.
Her eyes get really wide, and she says, "Okay, I like your style." And she'll put out her hand for a handshake to seal the deal with both of you, right? Mm-hmm. And that is negotiation in Draw Steel, right? Now, there's a chance that if you had continued, right, it would have been a risk because if you had pushed your luck, getting a really bad roll means that, like, we've pissed her off, and now she's changing the terms of the deal, right? I've altered the deal. Pray I don't alter it further, that kind of thing. Cool. So that is great. That's like where that stops. She gets up, and she the next thing that would happen is she'd arrange the details of, like, look, this is the other thieves guild. Here's who's the head of it, right? Give her all your information, and then we'd be off on an adventure to take care of them, and that's how it would work.
Cool. So mechanically, just I think to give people one last glimpse of like how it all works, where did we wind up in terms of numbers for interest and patience at the end of that?
Great question. So there's a sliding scale of interest, right? Where it's like if their interest is 1, it's a flat out no, right? Like no, we're done. If their interest drops to 0, it's we're done. Like no, and I'm leaving, right? So even if their patience is left, they can still be a no. And generally, they're also going to try to screw you, right? Like, it's like, I am so angry about what you just did. I'm going to send assassins after you, or I'm going to spread nasty rumors about you, right? I'm going to move your cheese, whatever it may be. So she started at a 1, right? Like at a very standoffish, hostile. She's personable. She agreed to meet with you, but standoffish. You got her up to a 3, right? So 1 is no, 2 is no, but, right? Like, no, I can't do that for you, but I can do this for you. And that was the first offer she made, right? Like, I can lend you the tunnels, but I can't promise the people. I can't join the army, right? 3 is yes, but. Right. So 3 is, yes, I will help, but you got to do something for me. Right. And that's, a lot of people are happy with that. They're like, let's not push our luck. And plus, it's like, now we get more adventure. Right. Like, that adventure sounds cool. We should do it. Let's go. 4 is yes. Yes, I'll do it. Like, we're good. 5 is yes and. Right. So 5 is, not only will I do that, I'll throw in a bunch of healing potions, right? Or not only will I do that for you, I'm also going to make inroads for the next person you're going to talk to, right? And you can help them. So we ended up at a 3, and patience was at a 1, right?
Okay.
Good call.
Yeah. So you could have dipped down further and have her say, "This is the end. All I can offer you is the tunnels. That's it," right? So yeah, you can also get results where if you appeal to a motivation and get a 17. Not only does their interest increase, their patience doesn't change, right? They want to keep talking to you. So there still is a path to 5 if you wanted to get there, basically.
Let's see, would I have made it?
Yeah.
That would have been a 17. We would have just barely gotten there.
Just barely. But who knows? Who knows? Yep. Owlbear Rodeo dice are a fickle mistress.
They are.
Yes. Yeah. So that's negotiation in Draw Steel. I mean, basically, a lot of it's on my side, right? If I'm not stopping to explain this is what's going on, it feels more or less like a regular role-playing scene, right?
Yeah.
And that was what we wanted. We don't want to take away the fun of role-playing. We want to have that. We just want to have a way for the director to say, like, okay, here's what's going on, right?
It gives you a lot of needed framework especially for like DMs that might be newer to the system or who might struggle with like that very like how long do I have a social interaction go on. This gives it a, like Christian was saying, almost tactical framework of here are some goals. Here are 12 things that you might have to choose from to appeal to. There will be positives, there will be negatives. There's a finite timeline, and here's just a way of getting from A to B socially that has some structure to it, so you're just not left like flailing as a GM to try and figure out like, well, how do I get from here to here? Which I think is really interesting, and it's very fun to play through because you know that there's that added bonus of risk is not just the die roll, it's the choice and the die roll is very interesting.
Yeah. No, there's a couple of more deliberate like knobs you can turn. And I like the idea of, you know, having more of a framework if you need it. You know, it's not a mandatory thing necessarily, but you know, it really provides a framework. Or if, you know, your players really go off in a weird direction that you weren't expecting, you know, you can, you know, set up one of these scenarios pretty quickly so that, you know, they can kind of work their way through whatever weird negotiation they try to do that you weren't expecting, and you know, let the dice resolve it.
Exactly. And much like you know, much like any system in a role-playing game, there's all these little bits and bobs that you can hang on to it if you want to, right? So like there's a whole renown system where as you level up, you become more and more well-known. Your renown score increases. And that means if the person you're negotiating with would have heard of you, right, your renown score can influence that negotiation either in a way that's like, I love you, or in a way that like, you're actually infamous to me, right? Because I am a bad dude and you are good people, or vice versa, right? Like, and so that is, hey, if we're going in and we're infamous to this person, we should be looking at like intimidation tactics and, you know, trying to coerce this person into the negotiation that we want. Or, hey, this person loves us. Let's use, you know, our flirt skill and our persuade skill and that sort of thing to appeal to them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think that about does it. So, you know, thank you so much for unveiling another part of Draw Steel. Obviously, we are very excited to see it roll out, and always have a blast getting to play parts of your game with you. So, thank you very much for that. Obviously, you know, Draw Steel will be coming out here. They're still working their way through it, but it'll be here and you know, maybe in a year that ends with a 5, perhaps. But you know, I'm not. I wasn't gonna put that in your mouth, James. But you know, obviously, they're still working towards it, and you know, a lot of cool things are happening. You can check out the MCDM Discord. They do regular updates there. Obviously, the MCDM video page does updates, all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sure we will talk to you again soon. And yeah, thank you very much. And do the liking and the subscribing and the usual things I say at the end of this video. Thank you very much.